Hello and welcome back to the Lapdown podcast. We're back on another race weekend preview because it's a double bubble to start the year. And we're going straight from Australia to China, unless you're some freight, in which case you're sort of going to China eventually. And Dan's also on the other side of the world now, so he's in a Minecraft dirt hut. And apologies if he sounds a little bit worse for wear. He's on a bit of a temporary setup. But Dan, how are you doing? And how's the flight? And how's the jet lag and everything?
Yeah, I'm good. I was just doing the opening sector of China there. I don't know whether you noticed.
I could see you having an incident. I didn't know if it was jet lag related or if it was something else. But
just an incident.
Just a Chinese incident.
Just an incident. Yeah, no, I'm all good. The flight was well, it was a 7-hour flight through the daytime. It's about as good as it can possibly get. You can't sleep on them. They're uncomfortable. The food is the food, and the people, it's just all gets a bit. Airports, I reckon they bring out the dick in people. They really do.
Airports and helmets.
Yeah, exactly. I'm good. I'm ready. We're here to talk about Formula One. We've got a lot to talk about. We're going to open with Eddie Jordan. Obviously, we got the sad news this morning that he passed away. Big loss, I think, for Formula One there. We've got the Chinese Grand Prix, as you said, imminently with a sprint weekend. We've got flexi wings and V10s. We've got a potential new destination for Formula One to visit in 2028 as well. So, relatively speaking, a bit of a quieter week. But we'll start with Eddie Jordan. And as a Drive to Survive person, you don't know anything about this. But, okay, so Eddie Jordan started his team in 1991, that Jordan team. Gave debuts to Formula One to Michael Schumacher, amongst a lot of other people. Just a real kind of, as you would have noticed through those podcasts and Drive to Survive episodes and things that he would have featured in, just an absolute larger-than-life character. Big flare shirts, funky sunglasses, so passionate and so enthusiastic about the sport. Let's not forget, that team that he created in 1991 is now that Aston Martin team that we see with Fernando and Lance Stroll. It went through Spiker, it went through Midland, Force India, and then obviously in the incarnation of what it is now. For me, like a real kind of icon, I think, of my childhood. I think back to that era, like in the late 90s, that infamous Spa Grand Prix in 1998, where 6 cars made it down the first straight before everybody else just disappeared into the Armco. That was like Jordan's big day. It was a 1-2 for Damon Hill and Ralph Schumacher. Just incredible bloke. And I think ultimately it's a shame, isn't it, when people pass away, but that legacy that he created back in 1991 is still going with Aston Martin, and I'm sure he'll be remembered really well this weekend in China.
Yeah. Isn't it cool as well I say cool, actually, I don't know if cool's the word, in Formula One, how you get these team changes and these team evolutions that his team is in theory still racing, but just, I mean, so disconnected and yet all the way through. And as you say, like the fact that it was called Force India at one point. You know, it's gone from being essentially Eddie's team to suddenly being the Indian national team to now being kind of a British national team in Aston Martin. It's quite unique, I think, in Formula One in that way, that these teams can stay kind of as the same thing, but go through these wild twists and turns. But no, I said to you at the top, I said, I'm going to let you speak to Eddie, because my historical, I don't have time to go back and catch up on F1 massively, because there's enough F1 happening now that there's only so much time in the day to go back to the old stuff, particularly the older stuff. I know it goes back further than the 90s and stuff, but no, as you say, it's the fact that I know who he is, right? And I'm not going to keep calling myself a Drive to Survive fan. If you run a Formula One podcast,
keep gatekeeping yourself,
and how much F1 I consume now, I have moved beyond that level of understanding, but just not historically. And I sort of said to you, I'll let you speak to him, but I still know who he is, which, as much for those older, the last era, if you like, of F1 people, if you come across my radar still, then you're something on the top there. So I'm not going to try and sort of eulogize anything on that. That wouldn't be for me to do.
No.
But yeah, I'm sure they'll do something wonderful this weekend. I'm sure
they will.
We'll pull some stuff out. Right. Well, going back then, we'll link that into it's going back and going forward at the same time, because if there's chatter all of a sudden that we're going V10 again, baby. Sort of V10-ish. Like V10s, but they're running on this eco bio fuel that's made of whatever it is.
V9.5s.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they're still going to sound better than what they do at the minute. I know you hate it, and well, no, you don't hate it.
No.
You're indifferent about it. Let me reword it. You're completely indifferent about it, but I just to hear like 20. Well, there's going to be like 24, isn't there? But hear 24 of the buggers screaming past you. There's a clip that keeps popping up every now and again of like comparison to that V10 era at Spa when they come out of La Source, down the hill, up Eau Rouge, Radion, down the Camel Straight, from that era to this era, and you can hear the cars get off the line at Spa in the V10, and you can hear them. This just builds and it builds and it builds and builds, and all of a sudden it's just like screaming at you in the face as they go. Whereas now with the modern video, you sit there and it's just like, and then all of a sudden you hear, and then they just carry on down and then they disappear again. So the more noise is better.
Oh yeah, look, I'll allow more noise is better as the summary of it. I don't want to be a little negative Nancy about it, or is it actually going to happen? Or is this going to be one of those headbutting situations where Formula One fans like the idea of V10s, Stefano likes the idea of V10s, because ultimately, and we probably don't, we make some jokes about Stefano in the podcast. I actually think Stefano does a pretty good job as the head of he's sort of head of Formula One, which is a weird sort of role with all the stakeholders at play, but he kind of gives the impression that he is sort of for the fans to a certain extent. People tend to not hate Stefano massively. That might just be because they're too busy. Italian. They're hating other people, that they don't have energy left to hate Stefano. But he is a little bit for the fans, and whether or not it's a nice headline quote to come out and say, wouldn't it be great to go back to V10s in 2028? And then he, goes back into his office and just crosses that off. That was a fun thing to say. We're not doing it.
That'll keep the peasants quiet for 5 minutes.
For another 6 months, they'll stay off my back. Or is it that classic politics thing of there's something dirty going on, so you make another outrageous or positive, like, softball announcement to try and cover it? But are the teams, not the teams, the manufacturers going to be that into it? I know there's always that conversation of Formula One is supposed to be like a technological breeding ground for, the Mercedes of the world, and that's why they're in the sport, because they want to use it as a test bed. Are we going to see a real world application for, synthetic V10s that they're going to want to invest money in it, or are they quite happy on the hybrids for that reason?
Yeah, I mean, I think with regards to the road cars, everything's going to go electric hydrogen, isn't it, in the next 10, 15, 20 years, whatever that looks like. So a synthetic V10 Formula One engines, at the end of the day, if they go into a road car, they are going to be for that absolute upper echelon. So actually, the breeding ground of it, I think they can practice a lot and they can learn a lot from it. But what they do in Formula One is utterly irrelevant as to what Mercedes are going to go and put in a Mercedes A-Class that Deborah's going to buy, who runs the hairdressers in Newton Abbot or wherever she might live. So actually, at that point there, I think go for it. I think just have fun, because actually what you do in Formula One, how many Formula One V6 hybrid engines are going into mainstream road car production right now? Not many. I mean, not many of us can buy an Aston Martin, full stop. So there's that kind of brand and mark gone straight out the way. Alpine make a car. Ferrari fall in the Aston Martin category. Williams, I mean, well, good luck trying to find one of those on Auto Trader, because they don't exist. Like, it's that kind of thing. So I think go for it. Just make it as good and as cool as you possibly can. And if it's V10s, great. If it's hybrid fuels, because we need to be eco-friendly, fantastic. If it sticks with V6s at the minute, we've still got a really good spectacle anyway. So it's not like it's going to be. It's not going to suddenly become a 4-cylinder like eco 1 liter eco boost box thing from Ford, is it? It's still going to be good. It's still going to be fast. But 2028. Well, that'll be with us before we know it. You need to be really careful as how you word this, but I was trying to be smart about it, and I just can't. But I like Bangkok. And Formula One are allegedly going there. Our mate, Stefano Domenicali, has been on holiday to Thailand again, courtesy of the Thai government. So again, could it be a little free holiday to Pattaya or Krabi or Phuket or wherever he might have been? Or is it is it actually genuine Stefano? But there is a chance, apparently, that we are going to get a Thai Grand Prix for 2028, which, as long as it's not in Bangkok itself, and having been to Bangkok a few times, I'm not convinced how they'd find the roads that would be appropriate to race Formula One cars around them. But anyway, yeah, I'm all for it. Go different places. Take the sport to new people.
Yeah, Stefano's getting a lot of airtime today, isn't he? This is the Stefano episode. I said to you before we started, I'm so on board with F1 being this genuine traveling circus that I know people are going to go, you have to have Monaco, you have to have Spa, you have to have Silverstone. Yes, okay, I don't disagree. There's a cool element to the fact that which tracks are we going to this year? What's the calendar look like this year? That we can take this road show to different places. And I know we don't, the whole Las Vegas Grand Prix thing was supposed to be this eye-catching thing. They're going down the strip. It's going to look incredible. And all you can see is the sphere and nothing else. So it probably doesn't matter where we are. But the idea that we're in a completely different place and we're taking that to different people and whatever, really on board with it. Please just not another street race. Like, I just don't need another street circuit on my calendar. That said, I had a look at what the current FIA graded track is in Thailand, and it's like 8 straights and like 2 corners, one of which is just a kink that they're definitely going to take flat out. That I'm not sure that would be much better, realistically, than a street circuit anyway. But yeah, throw it round. And I don't want to, rile up the locals and get into a conversation about what tracks would have to make way in order for that to happen. Yeah. But yeah, take us to South Africa, take us to Thailand. Let's throw it round. There's something quite cool about that. And my big thing is always randomness, right? I like that random element in the sport, or the variable element.
Series opener, Silverstone, early March, snow on the ground.
Well, it's more like they're so dialed in all the time. We're going to come to this in a minute because it's a sprint weekend this weekend. I love it when they are not perfectly dialed in because they haven't just done, couple of hours worth of running and perfectly know exactly when the tires are going to go off down to the millisecond, and
open the spreadsheet from last year and just kind of went,
the race is all
similar.
what's
going to happen.
Yeah. If it was a case that I'm going to use Silverstone as an example. I like Silverstone as a track. I'm not suggesting that we've been it, but we're not going back to Silverstone for a couple of years. A lot's going to have changed in those 2 years with the cars and whatever it brings. That the attribute variability. That makes me sound smart, doesn't it?
It does. I don't know what it means, but well done.
No, that comes more into play. So I like that idea that they're still going to get dialed in. They're going to have sim setups and all the rest of it. Fine. But that's kind of cool. We're somewhere different. You have to tackle a new challenge, and that challenge is Thailand, whatever.
Yeah, different temperatures, different climates, different altitudes. I'm sure there's lots of economical reasons as to why you can't just pick up and drop tracks here, there, and everywhere and pick up new ones and things like that. But I agree with you. I think 24 is probably the limit of Grand Prix that we'll have. I'd be disappointed, I think, if we ended up with 25, 26. But that obviously means we are going to lose a couple if these new places are going to arrive. So, but I'm all for it. And maybe short-term contracts are the way to go. Maybe they're not. Who knows? But Stefano,
it's a controversial take.
Stefano gets everything right, as we've discussed and said on this podcast. So again, Stefano, if you're watching, which I'm sure you are on all these business class flights that you're taking, give Lap Down a little nudge up the little pecking order.
Send us around. We'll scout them. Scout them. We'll review them.
We're there.
It could be like the padded seat, but for Formula One. If we can get into them on some freebies, we'll do padded seat for F1 hospo.
But before they've broken ground at the new circuit.
It's just a trip to Thailand at this point. It's
just sat in a field.
It's just Lap Down on tour.
This might be the track for Formula One. Equally, it might be built 5 kilometers that way. We don't know.
Well, that's what they're doing in Madrid, isn't it? They're just making that up as they go along.
Yeah, just go around.
Right, before we move on then to this weekend, we've got a little bit of looking back to do from last weekend because we've had a message from Dennis. And Dennis raises an interesting point. And I'd like to throw Dennis's idea to you because I'm going to say from the start, this is Dennis's point, right? So you can throw heat at Dennis, right? I'll send you his email address and his home phone number and all the rest of it in a minute that you can send your points that way. I do kind of agree with Dennis, possibly.
Yeah.
we had a message from Dennis, and I'm not going to read it long. I'm going to paraphrase it slightly, but it was in response to the idea that Yuki might want or might catch the attention finally of Red Bull if Liam can't keep up. And Dennis said, I think it's actually more about the car than the driver at Red Bull. Max must have a horrendous driving style. His words, horrendous driving style, because I think the car gets built around him. And so over the last 5 or 6 years, that's why they've gone through so many second drivers, because that car... It's not that they just can't keep up. It's if that car is dialed in such a bizarre way for Max, other drivers that are used to a normal car sit in it and go, well, why the pedals the wrong way around or whatever? I turn left on the wheel and the car turns right. Dennis also thinks that you would probably turn down the drive if they offered it to him, because you're just throwing yourself into the mouths of wolves there. I don't know whether or not you actually get a choice on that particularly. You might just sort of get told. You might just get told you're going here. But the basic question...
Uncle Helmet's coming round again.
Yeah. Oh, God, you scared of Uncle Helmet. So the summary question that I'm going to ask you out of that, does Max Verstappen have a horrendous driving style that the car is then built around him that means no one else can sit in that car? And I will say it again, Dennis's words, not mine.
Let's call it unique. Let's call it unique. I think there's a lot of evidence to suggest that could be the case. He's kind of cycled through teammates, hasn't he, pretty quickly? Or Red Bull have cycled through teammates. I don't think Max has really had anything to do with it, to be completely honest. But
just drives a car, doesn't he?
They've certainly given the impression that they're a team where all their eggs have gone in one basket, which is completely okay. They've got their number one driver, and they've really invested in him. And clearly, as you say, they've sat Max down on the floor in Milton Keynes, and they've left him there for a month, and they've built the car up around him. And then basically anybody else that's lucky enough, they have to try and fit in. I remember, I think it was Alex Albon when he got dumped out of that, or moved on from that Red Bull family. He was saying on one of those podcasts, maybe that high performance one, saying about the fact that that car is so set up for Max that it does become very difficult for anybody else to go and sit in there, because he does have this unique driving. So I don't know what that style is. I've got no idea whether it involves sharp steering, gentle steering, heavy braking, or whatever it might be. But clearly there is a very unique style there, which is built for that car, or that car's built for that style. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anybody since Daniel that would have been a success. I know like Checo did win races, but it's hard to kind of call him a success given the shit that we gave him over the last 18 months. So yeah, I think I agree. I agree with Dennis. It's a good point. And I think Liam's onto a bit of hiding for nothing, and that Red Bull kind of team or factory could be about to chew another one out. And unfortunately, not all of them are Pierre Gasly's and Alex Albon, and end up kind of hoovered up by some of those teams lower down the grid. They just fall to the wayside and end up in like God's waiting room, which I think is called Formula E.
Oh, God, Formula E. I've tried. So we're not going to turn this into a slander section of Formula E, but I've tried to watch that a couple of times, and I find it very difficult. I don't know what it is. It just doesn't feel
I think
right.
It's because they're not full of V10s.
It's just all engine. That's why the racing just feels. I don't know. Again, they're all street circuits as well, almost always as well, which then doesn't help, and it all feels a little bit contrived to me. But that's maybe a summer break discussion, or one of the many random 3 or 4 week breaks I'm sure we'll have during the course of the year. We can chat some Formula E. But for the time being, though, we've got China to talk about, because we're double bubble. It's the Chinese Grand Prix. Apparently, it's a sprint weekend. I feel like they've kept that very quiet, because I didn't find that out until yesterday when I was like sort of getting ready for the weekend. I was like, oh, we're sprinting. Bloody early in the year for a sprint race, round 2. Bearing in mind we haven't gone racing yet in the dry in this year. We now get one FP session, and then we'll go qualifying. Interesting. Could be fun.
Let's do it. Sprints every week. No, I think it's good. I agree with you. I think it was kept pretty quiet, because I went through and built this kind of spreadsheet up for our little kind of lap down world championship points. And I'm pretty sure, and someone will fact check me and I'll be wrong, but I'm pretty sure when I looked through the calendar on the official Formula One website, there was no indication to whether there was or wasn't a sprint for those individual races.
So you click into it and see like the...
Yeah, which I wasn't prepared to do. But no, I'm good. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. Flexi wings are going to be banned, which Lando has said doesn't have any impact on McLaren. Could affect Ferrari as well. My favorite thing about technical regulations is the Instagram accounts that kind of go, look, it bends. Because we've spoken about it before, but I love the idea that the technical director of Formula One is just scrolling through Instagram whilst taking a shit on a Tuesday morning, going, "Fuck, I didn't see that. Damn it!" Well, that's
they've got a V10 in theirs.
Imagine that. But no, I think it's going to be good. At the end, it's weird, isn't it? We've spoken for 20 minutes. We haven't really spoken about China because I don't really think there's a great deal to talk about because we don't know anything.
No. We know nothing yet.
Yeah.
We know that, Max is still very good in the wet. We know that Oscar's still got balls of steel, and we know that McLaren is still quick at the minute. And that's all we've got to work on.
But it was all in the wet as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah, we had a little bit of dry, practice running where you never know who's doing what anyway. That it's kind of round one all over again this weekend, I think. And even then, we're going to... It's Japan next, I think.
I think it is, yeah. Got a week off in the middle, haven't we?
We then go... to almost round 3 is going to be our first opportunity to see a proper pecking order this year, possibly, because it could be a little bit sort of all over the place. But no, we've talked before. I like a sprint. I think I prefer a sprint over an FP, and I like the variables again. So yeah, thoughts on China as a track? I quite like it as a layout.
I think it's really hard on tyres from memory. I think if you can be a bit of a tyre whisperer, so maybe Alex Albon actually gets another pretty decent weekend out of this, which would be good. But that's the other thing. We don't know which cars are good on tyres because they didn't use any of them, so we have no idea. But yes, I think it's a bit of a tyre muncher. I think it's got that obviously massive fuck off straight down the back of it, which will undoubtedly give Crofty a few kind of DRS overtakes to get excited about. Look, I'm really hopeful for this season. And my optimism is continued from Melbourne because I didn't learn anything at Melbourne. So I'm still kind of going, I really want to be excited this year. But we need to wait and see what goes on, because if Lando goes and wins this by 45 seconds or something, we're just going to sit back and go, well, that's 2025 ruined then.
Yeah. Well, George Russell, interesting comment this week, has come out and said that the McLaren is more dominant than the Red Bull ever was, which...
No.
George... They're 1 from 1. I get it. They've won 100% of races this year. No, they're not yet. They might be. We don't know. But they're not. Well, not the Red Bull necessarily, the Max Bull. Although I suppose there were times where him and Checo did sort of steam off. But, I mean, Max just spent the longest ever consecutive run as leading the World Championship or something. Okay, McLaren have won a couple of races lately. Let's not get carried away, George.
Good old gorgeous George. P3 for gorgeous George last week. Did you know?
Was he there?
Apparently.
Oh. Didn't know he existed.
Good points in the lap down World Championship for me though.
Yes, and should we pick some new drivers for this weekend?
I think we should.
We are going to follow sprints. So the sprint weekend points will count towards our championship as well. So it's double jeopardy. I'll give you first spin again.
No, you take it because I had first spin. I had first spin last week, so I think fair's fair. And I think as team owner of Dick Energy Racing, I'm all about fairness. Have you got yourself a sponsor yet for your team?
I haven't. No, we're negotiating.
Right.
Negotiating.
Yeah, nice, cool.
They've had to print the shirts without the logos, and then we'll just.
What about the shorts
later? Let's not talk about the shorts. There was a design concern there. They tried to give us an old Puma design from Ferrari, and we did not want that. Right, let's give you driver number 1 this weekend. Don't fuck me over.
Unless it's Lando, then I'm having it. Oh, it could be. Oh my word, you absolute
there we go. Okay.
Dirtbag. The comeback's
We're off to a really strong start.
No.
Pleased. Okay, that's a good get early tours because that's my banker now.
A good get.
That's a banker now.
That's the best you can get.
I can now deal with getting a little. I could get a doer now, and I'd still feel.
Yeah. I mean, just get yourself an Oscar because
at the end of the day,
I mean, it's more dominant than the Red Bull. So
got a number 1 driver, right?
Hit me,
Dan Jads. China, your number 1 driver.
It's going to be a Hulkenberg. It is going to be. How on earth have I picked that?
Okay. I mean, he scored points last weekend.
He did. It
I don't
doesn't
think
thrill me.
I don't think you're going to win, but
It doesn't thrill me that. I'll be honest. You never know.
But-
It could rain.
hey, it might rain. There might be something wacky goes on. But yeah, okay, Nico.
COVID Grand Prix.
Who have I got? Who have I got
in the sister car?
sitting next to Lando Norris?
Oh,
Oh,
it's
go
you.
on! Go on! Do, 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 do. Max Verstappen. Do, 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 do. Max Verstappen. Let's go, Lando. Lando is okay. I'm remixing. I'm doing a driver lineup remix. Ha ha! Oh, see you in round 3, Danny boy.
Double
Oh, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen. What a lineup that is.
T1, P1 and 2 on the grid.
That's that they're gonna squabble with each other is the only thing.
I hope
but
so.
I
do hope so.
feeling good about that situation.
Right.
All right, let's see which rookie the wheel's going to give
Let's
you.
give me a Lance Stroll here just to round out the.
Oh, there goes Lance. Oh, it's not a great
it's
spin for you, Dan.
Esteban Ocon.
Oh, the wheel has not been kind to you
Nah.
this week, is it?
No.
The wheel last week kind of gave us both like middle ground teams, like a little pros and cons kind of setup.
Yeah.
And this week, the wheel has gone, Alex can have the pros and Dan can have the cons.
Yeah, that's not good.
Harsh on a sprint weekend as well.
Hey, you live by the wheel, you die by the wheel.
This is what happens.
That's
This
the
is what
motto at
happens.
Dick Energy Racing.
Well, there we go. Okay. So I've got Lando Norris
just say
and
it
Max
again.
Verstappen.
Who have you got in your team this week, sorry?
Lando Norris
Yeah.
and Max Verstappen. I've got
Never heard
the
of them.
current
Are they any good?
World Drivers' Championship leader and the one who just led it for like 1,000 days.
Nah, never heard
And
of them.
you've got a bloke that's never scored a podium longer than anyone else in Formula One.
But this could be the week. Because
Could be
those
the week.
records are there to be broken, so...
Could be the week. And then you've got Esteban Ocon, who drove most of the Australian Grand Prix backwards.
Yeah, he was more anonymous than George.
Yeah.
Not this
Look.
week, though. Not this week, because I'm going to have my eyes peeled on Esteban.
There we go. On the driver tracker the whole way through.
Terrible. Anyway.
Not a great set of spins for you. Right
Done.
then. If you'd like to get more involved with the show, and thanks for all the love lately on the socials as well, people being really nice and also really awful at times on there about some opinions they feel are more correct than others, but it's all good fun. You can go and follow us at LapdownPod on Instagram and YouTube and TikTok. You can email lapdownpod@gmail.com if you've got any thoughts like Dennis did earlier, and we will give you a shout out. Leave a review on this if you've made it this far. You've obviously enjoyed it enough, and maybe show someone else. And Dan, if they'd like to see what you get up to in New York now and in the future, where should they go?
Have a little follow on Dan Jads. I'm there. I won't be talking about Nico Hulkenberg or Esteban Ocon, though.
No, unless they start playing cricket, which is unlikely. Although
but
European Cricket League kind of stuff. You know,
Good work. Good work. How about you?
will happen. Hey, look, it's Alex on Twitch. It's the best place to come and find me for the time being. Come watch me play some games on there. We will be back post China to have a little breakdown on that. Day might be a little bit funky because Dan has got some international travel to do. But early next week, you'll hear from us again. But in the meantime, let's go sprinting.
Come on, Esteban.